with. Okay. With the... How the heck do you spell that? Finale?
F-I-N...
F-I-N?
It's F-I-N-A-L-E. It's like final, but with an E on the end. That's literally all it is.
Oh, okay.
Welcome, my lords, to the Well-Earned Comforts podcast. I'm Sam.
And I'm Seth.
Thank you for joining us for On the Walls of Isengard as we explore the many works of Tolkien and discuss life. We're glad to have you as part of the fellowship, as there's no telling where we'll be swept off to. And we've had a pretty quick turnaround here as we're looking to finish up the conversation on the Mariner's Wife that we have been going through the last couple times we met up. So hopefully won't have too much of it. Oh my goodness. There was a gigantic lightning strike right outside my window, which means, as Baron calls it, God go boom is about to happen. God go boom is what we've said. We don't want to be scared of it, so we're like, oh look, God, and he's now asking God to boom more. It's pretty funny. But anyway, we are back, and we're gonna babble like Butterbur for a little bit. Probably not as long as last time, since it was over like 2 months since we podcasted last time. It's only been a couple weeks this time. I think, hey, we're doing a good job. I'm gonna check in with my brother Seth over there in Michigan. What's going on? How you doing? You look like a thug with your backwards hat on. That's pretty cool.
You like it? You were talking smack about the Grays earlier. You didn't mention the backwards hat, but that's all right.
I figured I'd lay off the Grays on the live, but
Okay, just rib me in the dark. I see. Funny that you mentioned thunder, because we recently had a tornado warning with a massive storm that came through. Thankfully, no big deal for us. But kind of wherever the tornado touched down, it wasn't near us, thankfully. Good. But it's funny how you mentioned Baron is asking God to go boom, because Evelyn was probably about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, she was awoken by a large, loud thunder crack. And since then, she's been terrified of big booms. Terrified. If she hears it, she wakes up screaming. She can't go back to sleep. It's just been the worst. And for this crazy storm that we had with the tornado coming through, we woke up at about what time? Like 11:45. We were awake from like 11:45 to 1:15ish, and we went down to the basement and just hung out. And we could hear the thunder, and it was very, very loud. And we, Amanda and I, decided to put on the VeggieTales God is Bigger Than the Boogeyman.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and we just watched it over and over and over because she was so scared. And by the end, she just kept singing it and just being happy about it. And she now knows the song. She loves it. She sings it. But like the next day there was another storm, and she heard thunder and woke up screaming and scared. And I went into her room and I said, okay, Evelyn, what are we supposed to do when you hear thunder? And she, God, boogeyman. And she starts singing to herself. And I was like, yep, God is bigger, and you are safe and you are loved. And I put her back in bed, and she put herself right back to sleep. I was so proud of her. And you'd hear thunder crack again, and then over the camera you'd just hear her start singing the song again, blanket over her head with her teddy, like you could see the teddy underneath the blanket with the blanket overhead, just singing the song. And it was it's incredible to watch that. She's, I don't know, it's silly, but like as a father, you're so proud of her for like, all right, she's got this. She's got this.
Dude, that's awesome. You're such a good dad. I give you a hard time all the time, but you really are like an incredible dad. And like, it's so cool to see you with the daughter, like how gentle you are. Like it's just amazing. Like you and Amanda are doing such a great job with your kiddos. And I love that you're teaching her that, yeah, absolutely, God is bigger. I mean, he's the one that's doing this. Like, obviously he's very powerful, as we saw with, the tornadoes that recently came through Kentucky, because different story, but still, he's bigger, he's safe. And, that's a really good thing that you guys are teaching her at such a young age that she'll hold on to for sure.
And a lot of that is Amanda. She knows just exactly what to say at the right time. It's quite the team effort, but it is very reassuring in parenting, because it's hard when things go well.
Yeah.
How about you? Absolutely. You said, we kind of right before we went live, you mentioned a pretty big tornado down in Kentucky, especially down where we had a family get together last summer.
Yeah, we've had a few tornado scares already just this season, I guess, in between like the transition from winter to spring and spring to summer. I guess for whatever reason, that's kind of tornado season around here. And so we were in our neighbor's basement a couple weeks ago, probably a month ago now, at like 2 a.m. just woke the kids up and went over there, and nothing happened that time necessarily with us. But then last weekend we were on tornado watch, which I'm kind of surprised it didn't get to warning, because Somerset, where it went down, was only like an hour and 10-15 minutes away from us.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a huge, whatever, like EF4, I don't know, some big number of tornado went through, and multiple casualties and stuff. It was like, you just kind of, you see the aftermath, the drone videos and stuff. You're like, holy cow, like this is nuts. And I always like she's very afraid of tornadoes. Like ever since we woke up 2 a.m., like the first year we hear tornado sirens, and I had no idea what to do, because you don't have that in Colorado, even though they just had one in Colorado. Just ridiculous. But
right.
But like ever since then, she's been pretty scared of them. And so like even just today, like I said, I don't think there should be any tornadoes, but like it's still just she's on high alert. Her whole Facebook feed, it's really brutal how Zuckerberg designed it. I don't know, maybe it wasn't him only, but like just by talking about it, you see all the meteorologist posts that you don't even follow. Like they just pop up and, oh, this is the biggest storm we've ever seen. And like, you know, a lot of it's fear mongering, but you know, I just like, you know, shake it off like, don't worry about it, Ariel. And then something like that happens an hour away from us, and we're like, oh gosh.
Yeah. Well, you guys have
lightning, but
you guys have experienced quite a few like natural disasters, not directly affecting you guys and your house, but like very close and in the near vicinity of you guys. So I think as men, we kind of just tend to brush things off, and it's like, yes, it's a tornado warning. Yes, I hear the sirens. It's 11:15 or 11:45. Do I even get out of bed? Do we go down to the basement? Yeah. And I was thinking to myself, like, I probably wouldn't have gone down to the basement if we didn't have kids, but we have two kids that are like, if something happened because of my pride and my stubbornness, there's no way I could live with that, you know? So it's like, it's like that father and mother aspect of life, where Amanda's fear, Ariel's fear, because I'm sure they feel very much the same way about weather and our kind of like non-acceptance of it, if that makes sense. Like they balance each other out, but at the same time,
absolutely,
once you have kids, you kind of, or at least me personally, I'll speak for me, but I definitely understand where they're coming from more than if I didn't have kids.
Right. Yeah, 100%. I think that's a very astute observation. It's good because my nonchalantness is probably helpful at times, but also, you know, foolhardy at times too. And just her not overreaction, but just over awareness has definitely been helpful at times for a myriad of things, not just weather, but all, you know, parenting and a bunch of other stuff. So
I need to read it
again. Like we're supposed to be different.
Imagine that, right? I need to read it again, but this conversation, and it's not really Tolkien necessarily, but in Mere Christianity, Lewis talks about this exact thing at some point, and it's been a while since I read it, so I don't remember exactly, but basically he explains why the female and the feminine side is, you know, very healthy for the relationship, and why the male side is also very healthy, where it's like, he uses the example of like, something happens to the kids and the mom knows how to protect and is hyper aware, but then the dad, his nonchalantness prevents the mom from like killing somebody, like Mama Bear taking over basically. And I don't remember the exact details, but it just made me think of that.
Yeah, definitely. There's a reason I think we're different, but everything else is going well over here for the most part. I mean, still getting used to 2 kids. It's a lot of work. Bear's been doing a lot of tantruming and just a lot of selfish play. But he's actually coming around. There's been really, really sweet moments too. Like he's learning to talk more, and he's just interacting more. And so Ellis is smiling more. It's just been pretty good over here. We're having a good time. Obviously Ariel being with the kids as much as she is, like usually when I come home from work, it's all right. I mean, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going on a walk. Like you have an hour with these kids.
Right.
Bye.
Yep.
And as long as she fed Ellis beforehand, usually it goes okay. But every once in a while, I'm just stuck on our exercise ball, bouncing Ellis while Bear is running around, and it's fun though.
It's funny how, I don't know. It's like, Amanda, I can't feed him. Like,
right.
You have to do that part, but once you do that part, I'll take the rest.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, hand them off as soon as that happens. But
I'm glad to hear that it's going a little bit better. Just real quick, I know that a couple weeks ago it was pretty rough on you guys, and I'm glad that, probably him starting to smile more and be a little less fussy and learning how to human a little bit more is quite helpful for you both. And so I'm glad to hear that the transition is starting to feel a little bit more normal, because it does take time and it's very hard going from 1 to 2.
Yeah, and I think, Ellis, he's a baby. Like, you kind of expect some of that. It was more so just the change we saw in Bear, because Bear used to be so happy-go-lucky, so sweet, so, but now with having to share so much attention, like, he's being resentful. And like I said, like, the last couple of days, he's turning a corner, and I think, and 2 more teeth have like poked through, and he's gotten 2 more coming in. Like, so he's grumpy all the time because of that. He's in pain. He got over hand, foot, mouth last week too, so he had a fever with that, and so he has a reason to be grumpy. But he's getting in like a screaming fit where it's just like he screams in your face, and man, self-control in those moments, like, just to, like, when he screams at me, or like he'll try to like smack me, I usually don't lose it, but he'll do that to Ariel, and for whatever reason I have no self. I just like either try to like grab him and set him down, like remove him, or I just like raise my voice at him, and Ariel's like, it's fine, it's okay, he can't hurt me. I'm like, yeah, but that's not okay. Like, that's not, that shouldn't happen. Like, I get so protective over her, I kind of forget that he's, just a kid that doesn't really know what he's trying to do. But
right.
So we're learning that, and she'll remind me, hey, it's fine, it's okay. I'm like, yep, you're right. But yeah, he's, like I said, he's coming back around, and we're having some really sweet, tender moments, and I'm excited to see how he continues to just grow into being a brother, because he does love Ellis, and he wants to like lay his head on him. And we were doing tummy time upstairs a couple days ago, and so Ellis was on his tummy on the ground, obviously, and Bear just came. he was about to just body slam him, like he wanted to cuddle him, but like he came running and just like literally was gonna fall right on top of him before I caught him. It's like, dude, you can't play like that. But soon you guys will be running around, you'll be wrestling, you'll be pushing each other, and I'll just let you go at it. It'll be great, but not yet.
Quite Hang yet. Tight. Almost there.
He still has a soft spot. Yeah. But yeah, let's jump into some Riddles of the Dark, because the storm is happening, and I might lose power. This happens often on this podcast, or at least once before. I lose power during these things. So you want to do the new version of Riddles of the Dark again?
Sure. Yeah, I thought that was fun. Are you down to do that again?
Yes, I am. Yeah, so last time, if you are just tuning in for the first time, or you just skipped that episode, we changed it up a little bit. Instead of going through our 3-in-1 trilogy book, we have chosen a character from all 3 ages in our brain, and the other person is supposed to try to do yes or no questions to guess which character we are choosing. And I've got one that I'm guaranteed you will not get.
I hadn't put much thought into that yet, so I need to pick somebody real quick. Ooh.
Got 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
Okay. Yeah, I got
2,
one. I'm good.
1. Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, I got one. All right. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to?
I'll let you guess first, just since I've already got it here. And if you get it right, I'll be incredibly impressed. So.
All right. We'll see how quickly I can do it. I will start as soon as I hit the timer here. You all set?
I'm ready.
So again, we're timing to see how quickly we can guess, if we even get there at all. Maybe we cap it at 2 minutes. Is that fair? So it doesn't just keep going forever.
That's probably good podcasting.
Right.
Sure.
All right, here we go. Ready, set, go. Is this character in the first age?
No.
Is this character in second age? Is this character in the third age? Has to be by process of elimination. Okay. Is this character man?
Well, there's a fourth age, but
kind of.
Yes.
He is a man. Okay. Is this a character in Rohan?
No.
Is this a character in Gondor?
Yes.
Is this a main character that has a lot of lines?
No.
Is this the Prince of Dalameroth?
No.
Okay. Does this...
That would have been too easy. Come on.
Does this person does he fight in the Battle of the Pelennor?
No.
Oh, shoot. Does this character die?
I mean, all men die, but
Come on.
No.
We're on the clock here.
No.
No? Is this a Ranger of Ithilien?
No.
Oh my gosh. Is this does he have contact with a hobbit?
No. Well,
is it Bergend?
No.
Is it his son?
No.
Goodness gracious. Okay.
I told you.
Is this the guy in the Houses of Healing?
No.
I'm down to like 20 seconds here. Does this character have actual lines?
No.
Okay. I Is he alive at the time of the battle?
No.
Okay, time's up. What in the world?
It's Aldarion, Aragorn's son.
No comment.
I guess he kind of has an interaction with a hobbit, right? When Sam went and visited Minas Tirith, he probably would have talked to him then. So
yeah, but that's like appendices stuff.
It's in the trilogy. Like I could, if I were to flip to it, an old version, it could have popped up.
That's
of course,
cool.
he didn't have any line, but
I know. All right. Jeez, I thought I was guessing some obscure ones too. That's cruel.
I feel so fulfilled right now. We can just end the podcast. I'm good.
All right. Well, mine is definitely not that hard, so you better get it.
I'm glad you didn't change it then.
I'm about to. I'm about to pick somebody super obscure. All right.
Nope.
When you start asking, I will start the timer. For the record, I failed after 2 minutes to not guess Aldarion, Aragorn's son. My bad.
Eldarion, not who we're talking about.
I know,
Aldarion.
Aldarion. That's spelled very similar.
Yeah.
All right. When you start asking, I'll hit the timer.
Okay. Is this Beleg Strongbow?
No.
Okay, I just thought.
Good try, though.
I thought it'd be cool if I could get it on. Okay, anyway, first age.
Yes.
Is this a man?
Yes.
Is this in Children of Hurin?
Briefly.
Briefly in the children. Is he anywhere else in Tolkien's writings?
What do you mean by that?
Like, is he anywhere outside of that story?
Yes.
Is it Tour?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. It was like 44 seconds.
I'll take it.
See, I did not pick one that was very hard. I was about to change it to some obscure like Vala. Or Maiar, I meant. Like Nienna or something.
Yeah, I can't remember all those names, so that would have been
That's
bad.
just all right. Next time, I'm gonna find a good one for you next time.
Perfect. Well, very fun. I liked it. Sam emerges victorious, as we all knew he would.
Nobody was guessing that. Let's be real.
If you did guess it, like if you genuinely did guess it, like please tell us, email us, like hit us up on social media or something. Just be like, yeah, I knew who it was.
If anybody knows who Sam was talking about, I don't know. We'll send you a gift basket or something.
Yeah,
we'll send some of Ariel's cookies.
Ooh, or that. Yeah. Well, we're going to jump into some Tidings of Fellowship. Not a whole lot. We have been having some discourse over email with our new friend, Maxi, who just joined the podcast. He's a Feanor supporter. We've seemed to keep running into those folks for some reason. But he pretty much we had a long conversation about, he explained why he thinks Feanor is a character worth having some empathy towards and even rooting for a little bit. But then he kind of doubled down, and he, because I responded with like, it's really hard to root for Feanor after, kinslaying and burning of the ships. And so he acknowledges that in this email. He says, hey, I'm glad you took time to read, because it was a very long email. And I understand that not wanting to give Feanor props, especially after his lesser of two of his greatest hits, the kinslaying and the burning of the ships. But one thing recent media has taught me was sometimes anti-heroes' backstories explain why they are the way they are, especially when reading the shibboleth of Feanor. Feanor, to me, is the best character Tolkien ever penned. That is a hot take. I would say that is a definitely hot take. I remember being 10 or 11 and ruminating on the trilogy when I Silmarillion. When I struggled in, it was great to discover that this dude really bested people like Sauron and Morgoth in domination of the history of Middle-earth. Talking about him is great, especially when you kind of notice the bias of the historical compiler of Silmarillion. I have no clue if that's how Tolkien and his son intended to write it, but historical texts and novels like Fire and Blood, I think that's Game of Thrones related, have taught me to read between the lines. Thank you, and you're welcome to share this on the podcast, Alexi. All right, well, we did share it on the podcast, Alexi. Thank you for your thoughts.
I do have a couple of thoughts on that. I do have a couple of thoughts. So, first of all, one thing recent media has taught me, and about the anti-hero and the backstory explains why they are. First thing, not really Tolkien related, but I'm so fed up with that. Like, let evil be evil, let good be good. Let's have good versus evil, and I'm done with these gray, morally gray characters that make you end up rooting for evil through positive means, if that makes sense. Like, I'm just done with that in modern television. I get where you're coming from because that's been everywhere lately. That's been everywhere.
Oh yeah. Oversaturated for sure.
Very much so. So I get where you're coming from, and in this case, I do agree with you with Feanor that he is just at normal, at baseline, he is a very complex character, and his motives are very complex.
Yeah. Sure.
Secondly, the fact that you were 10 or 11 when you picked up the Silmarillion, props to you, because that's incredible. I don't know. I think I started getting into the Silmarillion when I was probably a little bit after I got married, so like 25, and it still took me a few times. Late? Yeah, it was pretty late.
I remember listening to it on CD in the car as I drive to and from places when I was like 16. I think it was in the red van that I was. Yeah, that minivan swag I was driving around in.
Oh yeah, we've all done it. Every Moldenhauer child has done it.
Rite of passage for the Moldenhauers.
And then lastly, in the shibboleth of, I think that's how you say it, shibboleth. I don't know. Of Feanor. Shibboleth. I believe that's in the Histories of Middle Earth, and I read it once. And according to that, I don't know, Sam, if you've read it, I kind of doubt it, but nope. I'm pretty sure Feanor kills his youngest son in the burning of the ships, as opposed to. I remember having
this conversation with our Twitter or X friend, High King Feanor, and he mentioned that that's not canon, but it was mentioned in there. Which, if it's true, then yeah, I have no remorse whatsoever, or I do not want to cheer for Feanor in any sort of way. But
yeah, like his son, if I remember the story correctly, his son was asleep on the ship, and he didn't realize his son was there, and in his haste and pride, he just decided to burn the ship and found out he had killed I think it was his youngest son. I don't know for sure.
Dang.
But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to root for Feanor. It really is. But I do think he is one of the better characters because his motives actually make sense. He's not just a reckless character for no reason.
Sure. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Again, we will maybe have some further dialogue on that in the future, but I think we probably need to jump into the meat and potatoes of today's podcast to kind of keep us moving here. But thank you again, Alexi, for the email. And if anyone else has thoughts, or now as we finished up the Mariners, we're about to finish up the story of Aldarion and Erendis. If you have ideas for what you want us to talk about, let us know. We're going to hopefully try to do maybe a bit more lighthearted. This is pretty depressing in a really creative way, but it's heavy stuff that we're going through here, and we kind of want to keep it a bit lighter, a little bit easier also to prepare, as we have just really busy schedules and 4 kids amongst the 2 of us, and it's just a lot. So, but yeah, if you have any ideas, I know Luke, you already sent some your way that I'm sure we'll try to pick some stuff from. But anyway, let's jump in with meat and potatoes, like I mentioned. So we left off last time with Aldarion. He had this fight with Erendis. It was a very cold fight. Like, there wasn't like this heated exchange. It was just kind of very passive aggressive and cold, and there wasn't a whole lot of passion in between it. And so he leaves Amarie, where she's living, And as we heard, like the last thing we heard was he never stepped foot in there again. So he's choosing, okay, I'm not going to, live with my wife. I'm not going to even come back to where she's staying with my daughter at the same time too. And so Tolkien, after he talks about him leaving, he shifts gears, kind of goes back in time a little bit to King Meneldor, who was just given this letter from Aldarion, because Aldarion goes to him first, gives him the letter, then goes to find his wife in Amarie. And so, kind of go back in time a little bit as Meneldor is reading this letter, and there's a lot of lore here. Like, maybe spend a little bit of time talking about it. That doesn't necessarily apply to the story whatsoever in this case, but it, the Legendarium as a whole, there's actually a lot of really interesting stuff within this letter. So I'm just going to read the letter. It's not too long, but I'm just going to read it word for word here, because again, just be listening as you're listening to like the words of this letter to see like what you can pick up on, what you can start guessing. Like, ooh, what's going on? What's stirring in Middle Earth? Because you'll probably be able to guess some stuff that.
And we'll kind of chat about it a little bit too afterwards. But yeah, it's a big lore dump, so I thought it'd be fun to include.
Yeah. Again, this is Gil-galad sending this letter, and he said for the king. Like, he wouldn't even let Aldarion read it, straight for the king. And Gil-galad says,
just call him Gil-gadaddy. It's so much easier.
Ooh,
that's who he is in Rings of Power. Gil-gadaddy and Galadriel.
Okay, yeah. A new shadow arises in the east. It is no tyranny of evil men, as your son believes, but a servant of Morgoth is stirring, and evil things wake again. Each year it gains in strength, for most men are ripe to its purpose. Not far off is a day, I judge, when it will become too great for the Eldar, unaided to withstand. Therefore, whenever I behold a tall ship of the kings of men, my heart is eased. That's interesting. And now I make bold to seek your help. If you have any strength of men to spare, lend it to me. I beg. Your son will report to you, if you will, in all our reasons. But in fine, it is his counsel, and that is ever wise, that when assault comes, as surely as it will, we should seek to hold the Westlands, where still the Eldar dwell, men of your race whose hearts are not yet darkened. At the least, we must defend Eriador about the long rivers west of the mountains that we name Hithaglir. Hithaglir, yes, there it is. Our chief defense. But in the mountain wall, there is a great gap southward in the land of Kalanardon, and by that way, inroad from the east must come. Already, enmity creeps along the coast towards it. It could be defended and assaulted hindered, did we hold some seat of power upon the near shore. So the Lord Aldarion long has seen. At Vinulande, by the mouth of Gwathlo, he has long labored to establish such haven, secured against sea and land, but his mighty works have been in vain. He has great knowledge in such matters, for he has learned much of Círdan, and he understands better than any of their needs of great ships. But he has never had men enough, whereas Círdan has no rights or masons to spare. The king will know his own needs, but if he will listen with favor to the Lord Aldarion and support him as he may, then hope will be greater in the world. The memories of the first age dim. All things in Middle-earth grow colder. Let no ancient friendship of Eldar and Dunedain wane. Also, behold, the darkness that has come is filled with great hatred for us, but it hates you no less. The great sea will not be too wide for its wings, if it is suffered to come to full growth. Men may keep you under the one, and send fair wings to your sails. Fair wind to your sails.
Man. Yeah, so there's, first of all, I say this probably every episode, get a map, because when you're reading Tolkien, if you don't understand the locations, because Tolkien just drops locations as if he expects you to have it all memorized already. And so get yourself a map. But basically what he's describing is, if you remember in the Fellowship of the Ring, when they are trying to figure out how do we even get to Mordor, they're like, well, we can cross the Misty Mountains. That area is the Hithaglir. And then south of that, where they don't want to go, is the Gap of Rohan, which is Kalanardron. Kalanardron. I don't know how to say that word either. And so this is what Gil-galad is telling Meneldor, is that yes, we have a wall of mountains that we can, hide behind, but there's this giant gap that we can't defend, and we don't have enough people to defend, and we really need help. And it's, I don't know, there's just a lot of interesting little tidbits in there about, like, this isn't a servant of men, it is a servant of Morgoth. And then something else I found interesting is, in parentheses, when he says like the Lord Aldarion's wisdom, or what does he say? His counsel, his fine counsel. And then he says, which is ever wise.
That is ever wise. Yeah.
Which is completely the opposite of Aldarion in Númenor. So I don't know, Sam, what do you think of that?
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously a guy that he wants to be involved in the dealings of Middle Earth. He wants to, I mean, he's seeking adventure. He wants to be a hero. Like, I think that's kind of how I look at this. And so he gives wise counsel for those matters. When it looks like taking care of your own people and becoming king and just loving your wife and being a dad, no. But I think he's a guy that needs adventure and wants to be, counted among the great heroes.
Yeah, I just find it interesting that he has like zero wisdom at home. And yet Gil-galad, the High King of the Eldor in Middle Earth, is saying that he really trusts in his wisdom. And
I think that's what will sway Minodor. Like, I think that's, as we'll see here in a minute, I'm not going to spoil it too much, but I think that's very important for Minodor as he's making this next decision that he does. Because I don't know if he would have otherwise, had he not heard from the mouth or hand of Gil-galad that, okay, maybe my son actually knows what's going on.
Right. Yeah, and that's a great transition into what happens next, which is the king Minildor. He reads this and he just, like, if I remember correctly, Tolkien says that like he drops the letter like falls onto his lap basically, and his response is literally, "May Eru take me before such times," which that phrase right there, I don't know. To me, it parallels with like what Gandalf tells Frodo, where he says, "Well, Frodo's like, I wish that such times weren't mine."
Wish it never happened.
Exactly. And he's like, so do all who live to see such times, but that's not for them to decide. What is for them to decide is how to handle the times that are given to them. I forget the exact quote, but it's paraphrasing that. And Minildor is basically, he's being Frodo right now. He's like, may I die before I have to deal with this, because I don't know what to do. And there's multiple layers to this too. I mean, it's almost similar to the political landscape in America right now too, where there's a lot of people that want Americans to start focusing on America only and stop going across the sea. And even Gil-galad is saying like, it hates you no less than us, and the great sea will not defend you, which is the same argument that a lot of pro-war people make in politics these days. And I don't know, me personally, I'm more of a anti-interventionalist at this point. I don't think it's worth much or does much good overall. However, the arguments make sense in terms of this. I don't know. There's just a lot of parallels, and I find it interesting. But basically, the king then has some internal dialogue, just like, what am I supposed to do? I'm not prepared for this. I'm not well educated enough on what's going on. Clearly Aldarion knows a lot that I don't. And he's like, what do I do? And then he thinks that, well, maybe if Aldarion is going to, aid Gil-galad, maybe Erendis can help talk some sense into him. And then he goes into this monologue, just thinking to himself, and he's speaking of Erendis, he says, but there's little hope there, if it should be called hope. He will not bend in such grave matters. I know her choice, even were she to listen long enough to understand, for her heart has no wings beyond Númenor, and she has no guess at the cost. If her choice should lead to her death in her own time, she would die bravely. But what will she do with life and other wills? The Valar themselves, even as I, must wait to discover. Basically saying, like, Erendis is not going to be able to support or take away from Aldarion's decision, that she has he knows the choice that she would make, and it's not going to sway Aldarion, basically.
Yep.
And so Tolkien then kind of turns back to Aldarion, and he is returning back to Romena after, trying to speak to Erendis and then speaking to the king, and basically things are just not going great for him. And he, as Tolkien quotes, there's tongues wagging, like people are starting to gossip about him individually, but also his relationship with his wife. And there's a lot of discontent that people are aware of now. And he goes on a bit of a rampage and decides, all right, I'm just going to start felling trees for my shipyards. And he starts taking out all the trees except for the little elven tree that was gifted to him on his wedding, him and Erendis. And he actually looked at the tree and acknowledged its beauty, which for Aldarion to do is kind of rare, because every tree to him it's serving a purpose. It's not function. Beautiful. Yeah, it has function. It's not beautiful in itself. But looking at it, he acknowledged its beauty, and it actually reminded him of his daughter. And so he named the tree Encalime. And he said to the tree, just kind of speaking to himself, in my mind, he's speaking to himself about the tree, but he's really speaking of his daughter when he says this. And he says, may you, and, maybe, okay, I guess it's more paralleled. He says, may you and she stand so in long life, unbent by wind or will, and unclipped. So he's wishing upon the tree that the tree, can dig down and have a good foundation and withstand whatever comes its way. And he's wishing that for his daughter too, which by the end of this podcast, you'll realize is not exactly the case, but
yeah, not exactly a prophet, this one. But yeah, fast forwarding a little bit. So, we really tried to, because we needed to finish this cast in this episode. So we clipped a lot of really good dialogue that probably should have been added in here, unfortunately. But so I encourage you, as we always do, like, go read it for yourself, because this is a really, really good story, and the the dialogue is really compelling, and you just kind of see the hearts and the thought process of the characters. And so, but like I said, fast forwarding a little bit, we're gonna jump back to Aldarion has now decided, okay, I need to go to talk to my dad, and we need to figure out what's going on with this letter from Gil-galad, and what's going to happen with Númenor and me and my wife and all this. Like, he's just like, I just need to go home, talk to my dad, get some counsel there. And so, but when Meneldor saw him, he sees his son come in, and he's like, oh, like, you're different. And Tolkien said he was afraid because of how gray and cold Aldarion seemed, which. Yeah. Man, I can't imagine. Like, again, like I've said, Bear is he's got his moments of fiery passion and anger, but he's still like when we tell him, hey, say sorry, give hugs, and like kind of like snuggle his head in my shoulder. And so, like, there's still that sweet, innocent side of him that, he still has a lot of light and a lot of color. Whereas Aldarion's the opposite. He's dark and there's no color. There's just gray. And so he sees his son and he's afraid of him. And his son like comes in hot out of the gate and pretty much says like, well, I now have no wife and no love for this island. You cannot keep me here. So I'm going to go. He's like, for my inheritance, all I want is my boat and Hirolande and as many men as will hold. Like, that's literally what I want. I'm just going to leave. Like, I'm going to dip. That's all I care about at this point, just to like get back on the sea and forget any of this. Cause I mean, you got to imagine, like, the guy's fuming at this point. Like, he's just been holding in so much discontent and anger and frustration. And he just all points it kind of at his dad. And he even blames him a little bit, put this in there, but he's like, I don't know what part you played in it, but you do. Like, I don't know what happened, like, what you did to be a part of this, but you do. And he said, all right, but I want to take my daughter. But she's not old enough, is pretty much what he's saying. So instead, he demands that Encalime be left in the care of his mom, rather than, as he says, suffer the child to be stunted and reared among mute women in cold insolence and contempt for her kin. Which is just brutal, man. Like, he's
got a point, though. Like, he really does.
Yeah.
Because that is exactly how Erendis is raising her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's, again, as we talked about last podcast, it sucks to be in this position. Like, just the struggle for poor Encalime, too, to have these parents that are just so mad at each other and so honestly selfish in a lot of ways. Both of them both are not really looking, neither one of them looking for her best interest in mind. So he's like, well, at least maybe my mom would do a better job than Erendis. And so he asks of that. And then Meneldor he's quiet for a second. He's downcast. He kind of looks down, but he loves Aldarion. He loves him a lot, and because of that, he remits the harsh words. And even though Aldarion kind of blamed him for some of this, he's like, I don't find any guilt in myself for any of the hardships that you endured. But he also mentions, this has been really hard on Erendis too. And that was kind of a trigger for Aldarion. He's like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm done with the pity party for this lady. And so he kind of, again, he's super hot-headed at this point, and he just has this heart-wrenching response. He says, the king may have grievance in this, cried Aldarion, now more hotly, but not the one you speak. To her, at least, I spoke long and often. So he's like, yeah, I've had this conversation. To cold ears, uncomprehending. She didn't listen to anything. As well might a truant boy talk of tree climbing to a nurse, anxious only about the tearing of clothes and due time of meals. I love her, or should care less. The past I will keep in my heart. That was good stuff. But the future, it's dead. She does not love me, or aught else. She loves herself with Númenor as a setting, and myself as a tame hound to drowse by the hearth until she has mine to walk in her own fields. But since hounds now seem too gross, she will have Calumet to pipe in a cage. But enough of this. Have I the king's leave to depart, or has he some command?
Wow.
I mean, he is just like, yeah, it's, again, he's not far off, but he's like, I'm not going to be this tame dog. I'm not going to just like sit, at the fireplace waiting for her to take me on a walk. Let me go outside and have my fun. Like, he's like, I'm done. And who cares about like ruining my clothes or being on time for meals? Like, I'm sure I'm going to go climb tree. Like, he's using that as analogy to just be like, she is so controlling. She is so just controlling. Like, there's really no other way to put it. And he's like, I'm not doing this.
If you remember back of, I don't know which episode it was, but basically her parents complained, and when they were talking to themselves, and they were like, they basically said, it's all or nothing with you, Erendis. So you were as a child. Like, this has never changed. You are either all in or all out. And Aldarion, that's what he's describing. He's like, you are caging me and not letting me be my own man. But to some extent, like, he's kind of all in or all out too. And he wants free reign to do whatever he wants without having to understand or shoulder the responsibilities of being at home. And so they both are on opposite sides of the spectrum with the same problem.
Right. Which, as you imagine, trying to live in a loving relationship, that's just not a great recipe.
Compromise.
Yes. My favorite kind of promise. So then Minoldor just looks at me and goes, no, you can't leave. Which at this point, like, Aldarion's like, starting to like freak out. Like, he's about to freaking lose his mind. But right before he does, the king, says, hey, I'm going to resign as king. I've decided to resign, and the scepter is yours. You are going to be king. And he quotes saying this: it will raise you above scorn, and it will set you free of your powers so that other losses may seem more easy to endure. The letter of Gilgalad, when you are king, you shall answer as seems fit to the holder of the scepter. He's saying, like, people, like, they're wagging their tongues, as we talked about. They don't really trust you. They don't think that you're like the man for the job, that you're right for it. But, you're going to be. If I give you the scepter, that just kind of raises you above their scorn, and it'll allow you to do, what you need to do, and to make the other losses easier to endure. I imagine he's talking about Erendis, talking about just the focus of Númenor itself as opposed to, Middle Earth as a whole. But I'm blown away by Aldarion's response, and I'd love to have some dialogue on this, because it really is a whole 180, and you see.
You actually say that again. Your mic just cut out. You said it's a whole 180, and then your mic cut out.
Yeah, sorry. It's a whole 180. It's a completely different part of Aldarion than we've ever seen in this entire story so far. At this, after being told you're going to be king, he embraced himself to face the king's anger, because he had turned his back, and then he hears this from his king, and he turns back, which willfully he had endured to kindle. Like, he wanted. Yeah,
he was trying to piss his dad off.
He wanted it. Yeah, he was just poking the bear.
Yep.
But now he stood confounded. Then, as one swept from his feet by a sudden wind from a quarter unexpected, he fell to his knees before his father. And he kind of like sits there for a minute, and Tolkien says he even laughs, as he often did when he was shown like great generosity. I wonder if it's like kind of a laugh of disbelief, like, What?
Yeah.
But after raising to his feet, he humbly responds, Father, ask the king to forget my insolence to him, for he is a great king, and his humility, I love this.
Yeah.
His humility sets him far above my pride. I'm conquered. I submit myself wholly, that such a king should resign the scepter while in vigor and wisdom is not to be thought. He's saying, like, your humility far outweighs my pride. I recognize now I'm a pretty prideful guy, and the fact that you're saying, nope, I'm going to hand this over to you, even though may not be the right decision at this point, he's blown away. And he says, I'm conquered, which is, I mean, he's been fighting this entire story, whether it be his dad or whether it's been Erendis, he's been fighting. And, you know, now he seems to have won, and yet he's saying, I lost. Like, I've been bested. That's just crazy to me.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting piece of dialogue. And if you remember how Númenorian kings work, is they live forever. Not forever. They live, 400 years plus.
Long enough. Yeah.
And what they would do is they get to choose basically when they die. They can sense it coming on. So like the way Tolkien describes it is their early years, like 0 to 21, go the same speed as anybody else. And then 21 to 450 are really slow. There's not much aging. They're still in the vigor of their body and mind. There's no decay. And then from, 450 to 475, when they die, it's very rapid again. And so what Aldarion is saying right now is you're not supposed to give up your throne yet, because you're not near that back end. You're not on the back nine yet. You're still in the vigor and wisdom of your life. What are you doing? And so he is blown away by this. But for him to say, I am conquered, it's hard for me to process, because just like Sam said, he's been fighting this whole time. He finally gets what he wants, but now he's conquered. Is he just changing his mind because he's getting what he wants? Like my toddler that is screaming at me, and then I make her ask politely, and then she gets it, and then all of a sudden she's fine. Like, is she conquered? You know what I mean? Is she conquered, or did I just give her what she wanted after she finally asked the right way? So I don't know. But I like you mentioned, I do love how he says that the king's humility sets him far above his pride. Like that's a Tolkien every now and then is just such a good writer. And that is one of those lines that is incredible. And I've experienced that in my own life at times too.
Yeah. There's been times where I've been floored with, like, I wanted it my way. I had ideas and thoughts on how this was going to go. And then I'm hit with something like that. I'm like, oh, whew, yeah, you're right. And yeah, it's humbling. It's humiliating. It's embarrassing at times. But yeah, he's, again, like I said, this just a complete change from what we've seen up to this point with him.
So do you think he's embarrassed by his actions? Do you think it all rushed upon him in that moment? Or do you think he's just a toddler getting his way finally?
I want to say that he understands just kind of his attitude towards everything. At least, like, he says, I meant to piss you off. Like,
yeah, that
part, like, I think he was embarrassed of, like, I came here fired up to just piss you off, to, put my finger in your chest, say it's all your fault, and here you are gifting me something. And so I think at least that, maybe not everything else. I think he does have, a specific desire for what's happening in Middle Earth, and, as the king says, like, has some wisdom towards what to do with that. So I don't know if he's embarrassed about those decisions, but maybe everything with Erendis, maybe with, like, I don't know, but
yeah, I don't know. It's a very interesting bit of dialogue, and one can speculate and analyze. That's one thing I love, and we did this a lot when we did our Children of Húrin read through.
Yeah,
but there's just so much, like, psychoanalysis that can go into each of these characters, because you can put yourself in their position so incredibly easily. Like, Tolkien is just the master at writing these types of interactions to where it's like, oh, I've been there. Like, I've not been to Númenor, but I've been in that room talking to Meneldor going, I just stuck my foot in my mouth. Like,
exactly.
It's, I don't know. it's incredible. And I wonder if that's part of the reason why I love Tolkien so much and I resonate with the work so much, is because I learned from it.
Yeah.
Anyways, so at this point, everyone on the council, like the Númenorian council that kind of counsel the king, if you will, think that he is absolutely crazy. Like, we know the rumors, we know that things aren't good with your son. Like, what in the world are you doing? Like, do not give your scepter to this son of yours that we don't trust. And it's interesting. It's all of them except one, and I forget his name. Is it like Helicar or something like that? I forget. But
Helicar, I think
maybe it is. I don't know. I'd have to look. But there's only one of them that thinks it's a good idea, and that's because this guy has basically watched Aldarion from a kid and actually respects the heck out of him. But he's the only one.
Mm-hmm.
But Meneldor basically says, nope, I've made my decision. I am not informed enough. I'm not equipped for this next phase of the world, this history that's coming up with, this history that's about to happen in Middle Earth with Númenor, our involvement. He's not ready for that. And so he says, we're sticking with it. And he decides that, okay, I will remain king until I'm so bad at saying, I think it's like Erukame or something like that, but it's the celebration of the change of season for spring.
Yeah.
And he says, I will hold on to the scepter, and then we'll have like a coronation, a big feast, all these things. We'll celebrate. And Erendis saw this, and she mistakenly took it as a rebuke from Meneldor. She thought that this was Meneldor's way of getting back at her. Even though she had trusted him initially, she thought that this was like a slap in her face. And I find it interesting because Erendis is like the queen of playing victim, and she can never see past her own pain to see what her own actions have done, or to see the bigger picture that might be causing certain actions from other people. I mean, you'll see in a little bit here, but she can't see past her own pain, even at the expense of her daughter. And so I don't know, Sam, do you have any thoughts on that? Like, just the victim mentality that she has from, that point forward, deserved or not, she just becomes like the world's best victim, where everything is out to her to get her.
And that's the perfect storm, really, because you have somebody who is playing the victim, but yet is a very strong person. And that's a bad combination, is when you are strong-willed, as we've seen, as she called people out at feasts and, has been very strong and stubborn towards Aldarion. Like, to be both incredibly strong, but also play the victim in it. Like, that means that there's no bending her will, as we've talked about. And as Tolkien even mentioned, like, her mind is set. She's all in. And I mean, she's doubling down every single time she gets the chance to on this victim mentality. And it's sad. That's, you want to see characters change. Like, as I was reading this, because this is the first time I had a story, I kind of hoped, and I kind of had that like false, very immature hope of a guy of, well, even Aldarion was like, kind of hoped like we'd be able to figure this out. Like, I still love you. Like, let's figure this out. Why don't you come back and it'll be okay? And she's like, nope, no, unless it's on my terms, like, we're not doing this. And so it's sad.
Yeah, it really is.
You're not used to it in stories. You're not used to it in these kind of stories.
Yep.
It's kind of a slap in the face.
It really is a slap in the face. And at this point, Aldarion, just like Sam is describing, he's like, hey, I need you and I need Encalame to come back to Armenelos and remain here at least until the coronation. And like, just like Sam saying, maybe we can figure this out, but I need my wife here who's going to be queen. Even though he did say, like, I have no wife earlier on, he's trying, he's extending an olive branch. And he's also like, I need my daughter here. She's a princess. She will not be raised, in Emarie with, like Sam said earlier, the mutant stunted women. So at this point, the dialogue is very interesting, how Erendis phrases it, but it's like, yes, my daughter will come because she has to, but please, like, I don't have a home. I won't
excuse
go there.
me.
Yeah, like please excuse me. It's like a very politically correct way of refusing, I guess. But she does send Encalame.
Like, screw you.
Yeah, it's a definite screw you, but it's like a very nicely phrased screw you. Yeah. And when Aldarion reads this letter, it hits him to his core. And I love what he says here. He says, "She is dwindled, and if I have wrought this, then black is my blame." And then he goes on to, wish that she would arrive in our Menelaus. He's talking to his dad. He's like, "I wish that she would come to our Menelaus and be as beautiful as ever and demand the queenship of me and call me out in person in front of everybody, like this strong person that he knows that she is, like come after me, right? Like fight for your title, fight for me." Which tells me that he's a little bit willing to compromise. Like he's willing to work things through a little bit. And he basically says that he'd rather have a queen that's there that opposes him and attempts to seek to win over the people than what she's doing. And he actually says, and I quote, a beautiful queen to thwart me and flout me, than freedom to rule while the lady," and he uses a name for her, that Elistrine, "falls down dim into her own twilight." Basically saying, like, I'd rather her be here and we're butting heads all the time, but I would much prefer that than having the freedom to just rule on my own while this beautiful, beautiful woman just dims and her light fades.
Yeah, which, I mean, there's a lot of truth to that, and his desire for her. Like he still cares for her. He really does. He's made a lot of bad choices and has not prioritized her, and we're in this position a lot because of his decisions up to this point. But at the same time, like, he does care about that light that she used to have. And yeah, he's like, she should be like coming at me with the jewel of Númenor on her forehead and saying, no, like, this is my title too. I earned it just as much as you did. But she says instead, very politely, nope, you suck. I'm not coming.
Yep. And the story's over. That's where the book ends. Not really, kind of. It's Tolkien, so sorta, that's where his actual story proper ends. But in the Unfinished Tales, there's still another handful of pages about just like scattered things that don't flow very well, but that are relevant to the story. So Sam and I thought we would go ahead and discuss those because they are relevant. They do tell more of the story, but it just doesn't flow like the book anymore. It's more just like little snippets. And I think it's like little papers that Christopher found, while he was going through his dad's stuff. So at this point, after taking the scepter, Aldarion, he left Númenor and continues to aid Gil-galad and try to plan and everything. And there's this little snippet in here that says he even went up the Gwathlo as far as Tharbad, excuse me, which is, if you remember when Boromir's in the Council of Elrond chapter of Fellowship of the Ring, when he's describing his journey to find Elrond after having the dreams, he says, I lost my horse at Tharbad. It's just kind of a fun tie-in, but it's quite a ways from Rivendell, but it's way up the river Gwathlo. So just a fun little tie-in. But apparently he met with Galadriel and Celeborn there. But there's nothing said about that meeting. Like, it just kind of brings you, I mean, we all know that Galadriel was there in Valinor at the very beginning, not the very, very beginning, but she was in Valinor, way at the beginning of the First Age. And it's just like, she just kind of has seen it all to some extent. And it's crazy to think about.
Yeah, she really is kind of a main thread that goes through all the ages and plays a key role in each one.
Yeah. Yep. And then Tolkien jumps around and little snippets here, little snippets there, but he describes Aldarion as being too late and too early at the same time. So he was too late in the fact that Sauron had already awoken and started to gain power. He was too powerful to overcome right away. So he was too late in the sense that Sauron was already ready to go. But he was also too early in that the time was not right for Númenor to show its power. So if you remember, up until Aldarion, there really was Numenor was a place of peace. There was no need for weapons. There was no need for military training. There was no need for fleets of ships. Like,
right.
Until Aldarion, there was no need for any of that. So he was too early in the sense that Numenor couldn't show its power yet, really, because they just weren't equipped for it. So then we jump on to another little snippet, and it was said that no king had left Numenor previously, but since Aldarion was now king and he continued to leave and aid Gil-galad, they needed a regent when he was gone. And so he actually requested his father be regent and rule over Numenor while he was gone, but his father refused. And the person that ended up taking it until Calame grew older was that counselor. I think it was Halakar.
Yeah.
Which I just found it interesting that the king or previous king, his father, Meneldor, would refuse the regency.
Yeah, I think he's realized like things are now set in motion that I can't really speak into, and he's probably trying to distance himself a lot too from just the mess of the family dynamics there, and just plus, dude, the guy's retiring. He's on the beach.
Yeah,
he's on the beach.
That.
He's got his toes in his sand. He doesn't want to deal with this.
He's on the West Coast looking out. Yeah. He's got a drink in hand, listening to the waves.
That's right. Yeah. It isn't interesting that he was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Because he would be. I mean, that's a wise choice for Aldarion to like. Yeah, you got experience. People respect you, but it's like, nah, I'm not going to do that. The story then jumps over to Erendis back a little bit. Again, like I said, just snippets and doesn't really flow great. But because if the story really did end where we kind of joked it did, like then we don't really know what does happen to Erendis, or especially in Calame. And so we get a little bit of an insight on her parenting of Calame and what she looked like as an adult. And Erendis is just really bitter towards men, and generalizing, not even just Aldarion, like men in general. And she tells Calame at one point, and I quote, "Therefore, do not bend." She's like, don't give in to whatever they want, because once you bend a little, they will bend you further until you are bowed down. Sink your roots into the rock, face the wind, though it blow away all your leaves. Like,
she's speaking for herself. All saying, her leaves have been blown away, is what she's saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But she's saying like, hey, but stand firm. Like, don't be moved. Like, which is, and that's interesting. Like, imagery too. Right after Aldarion talked about like the tree, right? Like, may you not bend. May you, It's interesting. They're kind of saying the same thing for their daughter, but in vastly different contexts. Yeah. So I just kind of caught that Tolkien maybe
that's a good connection.
Meant for those two things to. Yeah, I just kind of like that. Just literally just came to me. But
it's one of those things where it's like, was Tolkien playing 4D chess, or was that an accident? Because it makes way too much sense to be an accident.
Yeah,
but it's also so obscure that not many people probably catch on to it. So it might be an accident.
He'd probably be like, I'm glad you got that. I didn't know it.
It's like, I hate allegory. I was just writing a story.
Sure. So growing up in Calame was split between Armenelos, taking under the tutelage of her grandmother towards, for Aldarion's wishes, and also Amarie with her mother. So she'd go back and forth, and you got to imagine, I've seen this too with some of my students that have like vastly different homes, that they live in with their parents who are divorced. They'll be with their mom who goes to church, loves Jesus, and then their dad who, wants nothing to do with the church, thinks it's a joke. And I'll hear just like kind of the difference of parenting styles, what the student gets away with at these places, very strict rules here, no rules there. And
that's hard on the kid. That's very hard on the kid.
It's very hard. Yeah. There's no consistency. You don't really know what's right at that point too. It's hard to discern. And so, yeah, I mean, you got to have a little bit of grace for Calame. She kind of grows up to be a bit of a turd, but you got to have a little bit of grace for her because of that. Because, I mean, just her circumstances are really tough. And so she's going back and forth. And she continued to go to Marie because she, used it as a place to rest from royal life. The fancy gowns and the feasts and the parties and whatever. Like she knew it was all vexed by Aldarion, and but she also found like the company of her mom to be irksome as well. Like she doesn't really feel comfortable or safe in either environment.
So
Tolkien, I guess.
So what he's actually saying there, though, Sam, I probably didn't write it in the document very well, but she is going back to Amarie because she knows that it vexes Aldarion. So
sorry. Yeah.
Like I said, I probably just didn't write it correctly in the doc, but she is intentionally trying to piss him off and keep him on his toes as well.
Right.
Even though she's finding the company of her mother irksome and not really enjoying her mother anymore, she's still doing it just to get under her dad's skin.
Yes, I did read that wrong, but I do remember that. Yeah, she was like I said, she's a turd. and rightfully so, like considering her circumstances. But as Tolkien describes her, as clever and malicious, and saw promise of sport as the prize for which her mother and father did battle. So she, a kid that never saw a loving family and loving relationship, just kind of gets entertainment off of watching them kind of hate each other and fight like that.
Fight over her.
As sad as it is.
Yeah, she's intentionally pitting them against each other because she likes to be the prize that they fight for.
Yeah. And then something very interesting happens when she's 19 years old. Aldarion stating that women can become the ruling queen. If you remember, up to this point, there's no he doesn't have any sons, and so
your mic cut out just for a couple seconds, though. But you said something very interesting happens.
Yeah, something very interesting happens when she was 19 years old. Aldarion changes the law and states that women could now become ruling queens because if you remember, he didn't have an heir. There was no son to his kingship, and so he's like, hey, I want to keep it in the family, so I'm going to change the law because I'm king. And he changed the law so that and Callie maybe could become a ruling queen, but she didn't decline the position necessarily, but rather she decided she would be a powerful ruling queen when her time came. So she was kind of excited about this, but she was, again, that strength that she's gotten from her mom, that stubbornness, she was excited to use in this new position. But because of that, lots of suitors came forth to be like, hey, you're going to be ruling queen. Like, I'd love a seat at that table, and started pursuing in Callie, and, she decides to run away for a time, and apparently Erendis knew where she was, but Aldarion prevented the council from looking for her because he's like, all right, she needs to just go figure things out on her own, have some time, some space to think, and kind of act independently. So at that point, this is again where we would like to see some reconciliation, bow tied on the end of things. Like finally they get back together because Erendis comes to Aldarion and attempts to reconcile with him, but now he is unmoved. Now he is the stubborn, tree with his roots in the rock. He's not going anywhere.
Part of the reason for that too, and I didn't put this in the doc, but he thinks that Erendis knows exactly where Callie is and is refusing to say anything and give up where she's at. So he's like, why would I trust you? You know where she's at and you're not sharing that information. And of course, when he's ready for, reconciliation, she's not. And then when she's trying to stick out the olive branch, he's not. Yeah, it's just an absolute mess. And so at this point, when Callie is gone, she's trying to just figure herself out. She wants quiet, she wants peace, she wants to get away from all the politics and people, all the suitors coming after her. And she falls in, as Tolkien says, she falls in with like a shepherd boy, and he sings her songs from far off days, and they spend a lot of time together, and eventually he confesses his love for her, claiming to not really know who she was or pretending so. And she actually she pulled away and then said like, well, I'm the heir to the throne, I can't marry a shepherd boy. And Tolkien actually says the boy laughed and revealed that he was the son of Halatan, which is that member of the council that we spoke of earlier.
Halatan, not Halakar. Halatan.
Yeah, I think Halakar is one of the kings in the Third Age or something. That name does ring a bell. But he's of the line of Elros, just not the ruling line. And so he's like, hey, I'm not as bad of a suitor as you think. And it's interesting because Callie basically says, well, I would prefer to marry no man. And she actually uses a name. I don't remember exactly what it was, but she uses a word for no man. And she was like, I would prefer to marry blank name, which is just an interesting way of saying that. She's like actually named not having a man. I don't know. It's just odd the way it was done. But they ended up getting married because she needed to have a spouse and an heir, and she did like him briefly, and during their time in Amarie, but Tolkien says that her life with Helicar was unhappy and she begrudged him her son Anarion. So they had a son together apparently, and she just was not happy that they had a boy because she hates men, including her husband apparently.
Niche.
Yeah. And at one point, one of Encalame's women wanted to marry, which she had forbidden. But Helicar basically was like, her husband, Helicar, says, yeah, well, let me arrange it in secret. We'll go behind her back. We'll get this whole, wedding set up and everything. And she then gets invited to the wedding and the feast, and she shows up, and she's just mad at Helicar and like insults him in a pretty big way. And he basically tells her at the feast, he basically tells her like, you can sleep in this room because you shouldn't be lying with a shepherd boy. Like, basically saying like, we're not together anymore. And so she didn't even attend the feast. She didn't attend the celebration. She rode away first thing the next morning, just fuming, which is interesting because this whole family is just kind of like, generational curses kind of. Aldarion and Erendis really
crazy
messed
cycle.
it up. Yeah, it's just a crazy cycle. And Tolkien says that she pursued Helicar with hatred ever after, which, come on, it's your husband. Like, we got to figure this out.
Yeah.
So then the story, it's almost at the end now. There's just a few other little snippets, but Encalame did actually become Númenor's first ruling queen in 1075, and Aldarion actually died in 1078, and she went ahead to neglect all of his policies and withdrew all her aid all of Aldarion's aid to Gil-galad and Lindon. So even though Aldarion, not the whole, but the vast majority of the reasons that he was going over there and trying to fight so hard for his freedom to do so, his daughter just cuts him off cold turkey. So I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah, you kind of look at like that was his only purpose after kind of screwing things up with Erendis and with his daughter. Like, his one purpose, his one good deed for Middle Earth just kind of gets scrapped.
Yeah, she just nixes it right off the bat. So her son, and I think I put a typo in there. I forget.
Yeah, it should be an Aryan.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I wrote Aldarion. I was like, wait a minute, that's not his name. So Encalame's son, Anarion, actually had two daughters first. And so, again, Aldarion had changed the law, so they could become ruling queens, and both of them refused to be heirs, and they remained unwed because Encalame, like out of revenge toward Helicar, would not allow her daughters to get married. Granddaughters?
Her granddaughters.
Yeah. Like, she would not let her granddaughters get married, which is just completely messed up. It was just her way of finally getting after them. And that's kind of where the story ends for them. And then the last little bit that we've got in here is another random snippet that talks about kind of the end of Erendis. And she really had a sad ending as well. And I'll just kind of read it verbatim from the book because it sucks. And it says, of Erendis, it is said that when old age came upon her, neglected by Encalame, so she lost the one thing in life she cared about, and in bitter loneliness, she longed once more for Aldarion. And learning that he was gone from Númenor on what proved to be his last voyage, but that he was soon expected to return, she left Amarie at last and journeyed unrecognized and unknown to the haven of Romena. There it seems that she met her fate, but only the words, quote, Erendis perished in the waters, in the water in the year 985 remain to suggest how it came to pass. So as she's
Are those
old,
like Tolkien's words? Like,
I think that's like the lore.
the record of Númenor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like what is said about her in the record of Númenor. That's
Sure.
a good way of putting it. So again, I kind of, you really would have, kind of like in Children of Hurin, where it's not a happy ending, but like they die together, right?
Yeah.
You kind of hope for something similar here, where she travels all the way back. And that's what she says, like she was actually having longing for Aldarion finally.
Mm-hmm.
Like she did want to see him, but I don't know why. When she got there, she just decided to, I don't know. I interpret that as committing suicide, but I don't know. Maybe you interpret that differently, but that's what like she saw him, and after seeing him, saw what she didn't have, and she already didn't have anything, and she was bitter and lonely, and just decided to end it.
I mean, it almost sounded like she was going to wait for him to return. He was soon expected to return, so she left. It sounded like she was going to try to wait for him. But as she's mentioned multiple times before, the sea is her foe. Like, if she were to go on the water, she would die. She mentioned that to Aldarion. Like, this fear of the water that she's had forever. Like, obviously, tied into like the tension between the sea and Aldarion, and like not wanting to give Aldarion up to the sea, but she has a lot of negative verbiage towards it, and so I wonder if this is kind of like a subtle callback to like, yeah, the sea won. Like her real foe in all of this story is the sea, and it kind of swallowed her up. Have you ever? You probably haven't. Have you ever like watched the play Little Shop of Horrors?
No, I haven't.
It's not a good analogy, actually. But pretty much the whole thing, like this guy ends up, he tries to get what he wants, ends up losing what he wants to the thing that he's kind of like, to this bad thing he's been feeding, sure. And then ends up dying himself in that same thing that he was feeding. It's not anyone who knows the actual play is probably like, Sam, why did you even bring that up right now? So I'm sorry, but
I mean, I can kind of see the connection there. Yeah.
Yeah, the thing that she's kind of been afraid of fighting, pushing back against this whole time, it won. Like it.
Which, if you remove the sea, which is I think where you were going with that, is saying the sea, but you swap that out with her bitterness and loneliness that she's been feeding for this whole time, and in the end, that won out. I think that's somewhat fitting.
Yep.
So yeah, it sucks. So, I don't know. Your interpretation maybe is a little bit different. I don't know which is correct, and I think that's probably meant to be ambiguous. But regardless, if it was an accident and the sea took her, like you said, she was scared of the sea, and the sea she said she would die if she was around it, or if she decided to end it herself. Very, very sad ending to the story. So. Yeah. Basically, nobody died happy. Nobody died with any amount of love. And Calame, the poor little child, and it hurts me being a girl dad and having my little girl, and just like to know that you like that. Like I put myself into that shoe, and it's me and Amanda somehow screwing up our daughter so bad to act like Calame does and become how jaded and bitter and just coarse that she is. Like it hurts my heart, even though I know it's a fictional character, just because I see Evelyn and I'm like, there's no way I could ever do that to my girl. I don't know. Yeah. It's weird.
Like you said, you learn from it. Like you learn,
it's a warning.
It's a warning. Yeah. The selfishness that I have as a man to want to do certain things, to want to put my interests and things. I mean, that's why we're podcasting after the kids are in bed, right? Like, because we understand we can't do this during the day and just make our wives watch the kids and longer than they already do. Like, there's sacrifice in fatherhood. There's sacrifice in motherhood. There's sacrifice in husband and wife and relationship. And I think I wonder, because obviously Tolkien does take a lot of inspiration, from older literature, North mythology. Like, I wonder if there is maybe a tale that's maybe similar to this, because there is one for Children of Hurin's very similar. But I wonder if there's like a parallel story for this, because, and even the things that he doesn't take from, older literature, he takes from his life experiences. You think Beren and Luthien, like that's kind of based off of him and his wife. Like that's the good side of a marriage relationship. Where in the world did he get this kind of an experience or this thought of to be like, yeah, I'm going to write the most like heart-wrenching, no fun story about a man and a woman. Like
this isn't.
That's obviously wasn't his experience, I don't think.
Well, yeah, this isn't based on anything other than a book I haven't fact-checked at all. But there's this book called John Ronald's Dragon. Actually, what is it called? I don't know. John Ronald's Dragon?
Yeah,
I don't
John
even
Ronald's
remember
Dragon.
the title.
You got it for me.
Yeah, I've read it so many times with Evelyn. I could tell you I could say it from memory, but I don't remember the title of the book. But there's one page in there where after Tolkien's parents died, he has to go live with his aunt, and it says she didn't like boys and her house was cold and lonely. Yeah. And I'm like, maybe that was his inspiration for Erendis or later on in Calumet. I don't know, because he did experience at a young age a house of a woman that didn't like boys, and it was cold and lonely in the house, which is the perfect description for the house that Erendis kept after everything went down with Aldarion.
Yeah, there was no warmth in the house except for the steam rising from his lumpy oatmeal.
Exactly. See, you know it too. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Great book. Great book.
I wouldn't be surprised. Oh yeah, it's fantastic. Bear loves the dragons. He's so cute. But yeah, it gets me thinking, because man, this is such a different time to live. Like
it's not even that long.
Time period that I know it really isn't that much. I mean, what, like 100 years, 110, 50? I mean,
no,
depending on what time he wrote this, but like,
well, true. If you're referencing when he was a kid, it was probably like 110 years, give or take.
Yeah, when he was a kid. Yeah. Like just the vastly different time that it was, and now you like relationships. I literally had a student that, not to go into too much detail, was like in this online relationship thinking that it was with the person she liked, and it was a old dude in his basement. Like, it's just stuff that you're like, how is this even possible that this stuff can happen? And so like, it's again just a whole different time period as he's writing. But as both of us have been in a marriage now for, I'm going on 7 years. You guys, what, 9 years now?
A year ahead of you guys. Yeah, we're 8
years. Yeah. Like we've got some experience on our belt of like what to do, what not to do. And again, reading this, as sad as it is also a good warning, like you mentioned, just to continue to serve well and to love well and to sacrifice.
Yeah, well said. I'm happy to finally be done with this story, because it's, I don't know, when I suggested we read through it, I guess kind of like Children of Hurin, where we were very happy to get through it, but that was like a 1.5-year process and 16 episodes or whatever it was. It's like, it was a lot. Thankfully, this was only 4, but it still took us quite a while to get through. I'm glad we did it, and I know you hadn't read it before, so I hope you enjoyed it. But
yeah,
I'm looking forward to maybe some more lighthearted, I don't know, lore dumps, just little snippets that we enjoy, little research on artifacts or what. I don't know what we'll get into next. We have to decide, but I am excited to kind of leave this one in the past.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad, like I said, I'm at the end of Children of Hurin. Like, I'm really glad I went through, because it gives me a whole different appreciation for Tolkien's writings, because it's again so different than anything else I've read from him up to this point. So definitely grateful I went through it, but also grateful that
for sure.
All right, well, I think we've come to the part where Gondor Calls For Aid. It's light outside, there's lightning coming.
You made it through. You made it through.
Yes, made it through. We're going to break in the halls of Metis Health, and we're going to shout, Gondor Calls For Aid. Will you, Rohan, answer? So if you enjoyed the podcast or the YouTube video, please light a beacon of your own by sharing it with fellow friends and fans. And of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave us a review anywhere on YouTube, on Spotify, iTunes, wherever. We've got 12 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. And so 12 people think we're perfect, which is fantastic. Love it. So, but if you want to share your Tolkien story or have thoughts on certain characters, kind of like what Alexi did, feel free to just email us. Like let us know your thoughts. You can email it to us at wecpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to just have some discourse with you on the email, but also share what your thoughts on the podcast and just have a fellowship, a community talking about Tolkien is what we really love to do. So really don't know what to expect next. You maybe even get to play a part in that. Let us know what you'd like to hear. But until that next time, we thank you again for joining us for some well-earned comforts. We bid you a very fond farewell.